upload that I'm going to share is about the spiritual violence and the spiritual cleansing that I have performed in my abodes and my community as a universal light worker. My spiritual identity has been of universality. My sacred light body was damaged after I gave birth, and I'm still experiencing bodily integrity damages up to the present date. The most recent being just half an hour ago when remotely a culprit of spiritual violence perpetrated a bodily integrity damage on the right hand side of the back of my head. These individuals have claimed in the past year to be reformed citizens of this community, and unfortunately the reform hasn't been actually that honest. So I am highly offended that the church and state are aware that as a universal light worker of sacred royalty that has had nuptials and childbirth disrespected by those that have conducted treason and that have disrespected the faith of my child and I, and are still conducting treasonous offences and practices of a faith that are not respecting human rights. In 2017, I commenced spiritual cleansing in my marital home and my family home. In recent days, I've had a little bit of a spring cleaning in my current accommodation, where I have noticed that there have been spiritual violent offences occurring, and this applies also to the former culprits and their developments in society that have been harmful to nature and privacy and environments, etc., and wildlife, etc. So this issue is with regard to those in my proximity that shouldn't be in my proximity, that are damaging bodily integrity, that are practicing against the faith and religion and spirituality of each unique citizen, and that are treasonous. The issue of the offences against my child's faith was brought to the relevant agency when it was occurring, and it was not duly acknowledged or resolved. So these are all part of the human rights abuses I'm experiencing, and the issue of wrongdoers in my proximity exacerbating their offences is highlighted and stipulated in my impact statement. So they have relayed tall tales, falsehoods, and slanderous defamation, and the church and state have been made aware that there have been spiritually violent assaults in this community. My spiritual cleansing work commenced in 2017, and I'm still prey to individuals that are spiritually assaulting and violating religious faith, and that are not actually of reformed behaviours and conduct. So the issue of being in a predicament that offences against my constitutional rights are occurring, and my royal status and title, to be in this predicament and to have these offences continuously occurring, and slander of my good name and good work, and falsified offences also being relayed, is just unfathomable. So due to my property and the offences caused to my child, these individuals are of avoidance and exacerbation, and not acknowledging the fact that they have damaged a sacred light body of royalty, and every human being is precious, and sacred is also precious. So they are not really rational or realistic about the consequences of their actions when disturbing nature and ancestry. and individuals laying claim to another person's spiritual identity and damaging bodily integrity of a woman, as I mentioned in an upload 2 nights ago, are all the issues that I'd appreciate the European Court of Human Rights addressing. So those in my proximity, they are in my proximity, and they have been assaulting my constitutional rights and my human rights, is an issue for the Department of Justice. There have been exploitative gains. There have been monetary gains from a spiritual identity of mine and a spiritual purpose, and that is against all principles and rules and regulations in the spiritual world. And I'm a little bit annoyed that these people are still violating faith and family and trying to change their tale when it's common knowledge that they have trespassed in my family home, my marital home, and my current accommodation. So those in my proximity that are offending the Constitution and my royal identity and that are of spiritual violence, I'd appreciate the Department of Justice and the European Court of Human Rights addressing these issues. It's ongoing, it's constant, and I'm a mother and a property owner and a law-abiding qualified educator, and there are offences occurring that are just not tolerable in a modern day democracy. So with those that are in my proximity perpetrating bodily integrity damages and spiritual violence from which they are not reformed and that are withholding my child unlawfully, could the relevant agencies acknowledge the damages, harms and losses being caused in my hometown in Tralee, County Kerry, Ireland?